Here we go, John. Thursday afternoon. Podcast recording, live on YouTube. 1 goal today, Middlecoff. 1 goal today. I hope this for myself. I hope this for you. I hope this for everybody in the YouTube comments. And I hope this for everybody listening to the podcast. The goal today is just not to offend Kwame Brown. The man, right now, I think he's my favorite person in America right now. He's just, every day, it's like, you see what Kwame did? New episode of Kwame. And again, not making fun here, John. I'm pretty impressed with his just shit-talking skills.
Yeah, he's a guy that went 0 to 60 quick. Hadn't heard of him in a long, long time. And then he comes out guns a-blazing, literally. Can you say that? I mean, I don't know. I would not fuck with him. He's huge, too. It's not like, he's just this little guy. I mean, he's like 7 feet tall. I mean, he's a big dude.
Spends a lot of time in his car.
He's driving places.
Just going places. Doing, community work, things for the community, whatever he's doing. I don't know, but I'm a fan. I'm just here to say I'm a fan. I don't know if this is going to result in like some sort of deal, if he's going to create a content company or something. But people
doesn't feel like that's what he's after.
No, he's just had enough of everybody's picking on him.
I think what was funny is you and me probably both align on this one. It's a type story that when I originally saw it gaining steam, I was like, yeah, I don't do that bullshit, these guys.
Same.
And then I clicked on one thing of Kwame. I'm like, I fucking love this. Because Matt Barnes, Steven Jackson, like they don't really do it for me. And so I'm on Team Kwame on this one.
Yes.
Now I'm on Team Jordan. So if it ever goes down that road, that'll be a tough one for me.
I don't. Hopefully they could bury that hatchet if it needs to be buried. But I'm with you. Wednesday rolled around and I'd been ignoring the story completely because I had no interest in like going down that rabbit hole. And then I saw one Kwame thing and then somebody sent me another one and I just thought, this is something I need to invest some time in. And so I did.
Yeah.
And I was happy that I did because now, he just keeps coming and I'd be stuck behind like an old person who didn't get a smartphone until 2020. You got a lot to catch up on. And I'm glad that I don't have a lot to catch up on because I already did the catching up. So
I don't blame the phone companies, but I wonder if we'd be better off as a society if our phones just had stayed relatively simple. I got a lot going on my phone sometimes. It's
yeah.
Like, I don't.
Well, have you ever did you ever consider like an Apple Watch or anything like that?
No, because that's just another step up on the whole thing. So it's
I tried it for a day, returned it. I was like, I don't want text messages on my wrist, and I started to. Like I started to get these like ghost feelings on my wrist. Like I started imagining, or maybe I wasn't.
What do you have on your wrist right now? A watch?
Yeah, it's actually just a Garmin golf watch. It's just the golf watch that I've always had for yardages, but I just started wearing it as like a digital watch.
So you don't have to look at your phone for the time.
Yeah. Right. And but I wore the Apple Watch for a day and I started feeling like I could feel the like electromagnetic I could feel it in my bones. I was like, I don't want this on my body all the time.
I never got into it. Never. And it looks good.
Yeah, it looks good.
I do think it's kind of where everything's gone with crypto and just technology. Is there a chance within even our young lifetime, not even talking like when we're 70, but when we're in like 10 years, like the new Rolex is more digital than it is? When I say digital is probably the wrong word, but that Apple type just phony than it is what it is now. Like if you tell me they're just like you can just wear like a $20,000 computer type thing on your wrist.
I'm sure you can find a gold-plated one. Yep. Or you're saying like it really is.
I'm just saying like that, like the Rolex of what we grew up on is just that level of thing.
For sure. I also think it's kind of cyclical. Like as soon as everyone's wearing an Apple Watch, then all of a sudden people start wearing analog watches.
But I don't even mean Apple Watch. I just mean other companies. Maybe Rolex gets into it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it'd be smart. Part of the price point comes from like being a piece of art, right?
Yeah. But now you can just like own an NFT that's a fucking dunk for $100,000. So
I thought Top Shot
even say?
Yeah. Did Top Shot disappear from the face of the earth?
Well, it's definitely slowed down. I follow this one guy on Instagram who's like this younger kind of rich business guy. And he gets pretty aggressive on some of his stories. And one thing he just put on a story, again, can't fact check this one, that Top Shot owes him and several other of his friends like all six figures. I don't know if they've had some trouble with financial stuff.
Yesterday, I happened to click on their Twitter link while I was watching the Warrior game, and nothing popped up. And
yeah,
so,
I wonder if they hit the skids.
I tried to take a shot at them and say, like, watching this game, trying to figure out which will be the number one Top Shot moment. But then I realized, most of America doesn't even have a clue what NBA Top Shot is gone forever. I don't know. Podcast brought to you by DraftKings, where you are all, as of this moment, chasing me in first place right now, John. Nothing like a Thursday leader. Midday Thursday leader.
You're in first place.
Thursday leader, but yep.
What's the money involved with your name right now?
$450.
So download the DraftKings app, promo code HAM. Like, we have these games. We got the U.S. Open, the British Open, obviously football season. We're going to keep having these games. And I promise you this. I feel very, very confident Haberman will not win the pot because there has never been a wire-to-wire leader in DraftKings. Now, you may have a squad that can test the time, and you might win some money. I would bet against you winning.
Yeah, looking at my team, it's not, you go, okay, Hovland, T1, Keegan, T1. So that's where my whole team is.
Well, Hovland could win it. Hovland could.
Yeah, but I'm saying the fact that I've got two guys T1 right now is a major boost for me.
Well, you get 30 points for each guy.
Yeah,
right?
So I've got 48 points apiece in those two. Justin Thomas not playing well. Max Homa, we'll see, and Harris English not playing well. Homa 1 under through 8.
Gotcha. So yeah,
long way to go. But I like talking a little. I just like.
I don't mind puffing.
While I'm in first place, puff your chest out.
Fuck yeah! I've been in first place. I've gotten cocky on a Saturday. I remember. I think I Insta-storied it one time. Might have been a Masters where I had like $800 because I think it was a 200-person game. But obviously, I fell off the face of the earth because the one swing that happens in DraftKings, if you have multiple guys, like a guy in first, a guy in third, and a guy in fifth. Well, if those guys fall back, you lose the bonus points for their places.
Yeah.
So you can drop back where did my 40 points go? And it just gets taken away. So you're right. I actually think Victor Hovland could win this thing.
That's why I took him. I like him a lot. But,
JT
inflated.
might be screwed.
Right now you go to JT might be screwed. Right now you go to DraftKings and use the code HAM. Get a free shot of up to $10,000 in total prizes every day of the basketball playoffs, which begin Thursday. Friday, a single game. Then the weekend will be great for DraftKings. Ton of games both days. Playoff games underway. And right now you got DraftKings pools. Okay, DraftKings offers free play pools every day of the NBA playoffs. Gives you a free shot of up to $10,000 in total prizes. They're easy to enter. Download the app, use the code HAM, then you go to pools, the word pools, and then you just choose from, they got a bunch of different free contests you can enter for a chance to win cash prizes.
Do it.
Podcast also brought to you by MyBookie.
MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM1. Now, one bet that I was pushing, I ended up not pulling the trigger just because when I went, I ended up betting on a couple other guys. Keegan Bradley, 80-1, and he's in the lead. Like, clearly he's going to be a factor, top 10. I got Homa 9-1. I got Spieth. I just put $50 on Spieth, $800. Gary Woodland, Bubba, and Tony Finau. I put $150 on Tony Finau to win $6,000. So that's as big of a golf bet I've ever had to the amount of money I could win.
Yeah.
So those are my actual bets this weekend. And if you want to gamble, mybookie.ag, they do a good with live odds in golf. Just if you ever just see a guy that's a couple back, maybe you can get them like. Sometimes in golf, you can be 2 back, but if you don't, for whatever reason, they're undervaluing him, you can still get him at like 10-1 on like a Saturday. You and I remember a couple weeks ago, we're like, should we put something on Bryson? It was like 20-1, 22-1.
After he flew back.
Yeah, and he didn't make a charge. So you just keep an eye on the live betting. And then the Warriors right now, Friday game against the Memphis Grizzlies, favored by 3.5 points.
You and I both like the Warriors on the points on Friday night, by the way. On Wednesday night. I think it was 7. Then it went to 4.5.
It was close. Would they end up losing by 3?
3.
A 13.5.
Yeah. MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM1. Remember, they'll match your first deposit 50%. If you accept that bonus, you do have to bet the full amount before you can withdraw funds. You can also decline the bonus. But either way, HAM1 lets them know that we sent you. Give you a little... just a little heads up on a couple of things we'll talk about on the show today, but it fits into the MyBookie discussion. You can get Trey Sermon as the offensive rookie of the year in the NFL this year at 40-1. Trey Lance is 5-1. Trevor Lawrence is the favorite at 2-1. You could get Nick Bosa as the NFL's comeback player of the year. Although, actually, never mind. I'll stop there. I don't think that one's on my bookie. If you're in a particular DraftKings state, you could talk about that one. That one's there. But my bookie does have the offensive rookie of the year odds, so you could go peep that. And yeah, like we said, ton of live golf and NBA playoffs. So holler. Well, I wonder what's Koepka's live odds right now.
I mean, probably not that great because he was 45-1 coming in. My guess would be 2-1 or something. I mean, he's won this tournament twice. He, is in the lead. I would imagine it's not that tasty. And to me, can he keep it up? Live betting. I don't know. It's not loading on my.
Yeah, I'd say they may not have live up this early, but.
Well, sometimes it changes when guys are off the course and other guys on. I think it's easier when your leaders on like Saturday and Sunday, it's more consistent. I think you typically on Thursday, because the inconsistency of guys going off, it's hard to make fair live betting odds with the staggered tee times. Gotcha. I think they usually kick in like Friday afternoon once the cut kind of gets set, and then Saturday, Sunday they're humming.
On YouTube, Tripp says Koepka was 14-1 when he finished his round. So that's a significant from 45. Is that what you said?
Yeah. To me, the live betting odds on Thursday are just pretty risky. Like obviously just making a bet on golf, it just has some inherent risk. Live betting odds on Thursday, a lot can happen.
Plus, you've got the weird swings of some guys teed off in the morning before it was windy. Some guys are teeing off in the afternoon. It's going to switch. Okay. Don't forget to get mailbag questions in. Friday live mailbag on the YouTube channel. You go to iTunes. You leave us a review. 5 stars. We appreciate it. In that review, you leave a question. That is how you submit a question for the mailbag.
Easy.
And if you're watching on YouTube, check out the podcast. If you listen to the podcast but haven't checked out the YouTube yet, do that. And for anybody, if you like the show, if you don't hate us, share it with your friends. Be like, these guys are cool. I don't hate these guys. So we appreciate that. In the words of Ludacris, word of mouth.
Some like older, I don't even know what they'd be considered, like life talk guys or people that you just end up following on like Instagram are big on doing this. Like, I want you right now to pick 5 people and text this episode. I'm like, that's a little cheesy for me, but like maybe it works.
Yeah, but I want you to pick the same 5 people and do it every episode for a month. Let's just get those 5. Let's lock in those 5, John. I don't want you texting 30 people over the course of. I want 5 people who you're just going to spam. I tell you this, just pick random numbers, not even people you know. I mean, I'm getting spammed 6 times a day for who knows what from who knows who.
My spams guy this week are out of control. I've got the same 888 number that is relentless, and I picked up yesterday. Tell them to stop calling. Yeah. They hung up on me.
Of course they did.
I mean, fucking A.
The one that
leave
kills
me alone.
It'll be like 40 people on a text thread, and it'll be like, "Hey, Daddy, for a good time, text or call me or whatever." And then people start replying like, "Leave me alone. Take me off of this list." It's like, guys, random people. It does, and if I block the thread, it only works. It doesn't work if a new person replies to the thread. So it's, "Take me off of this. This is inappropriate." It's like there's only one way to handle this, unfortunately, and that's just to ignore it, everybody. I never signed up for this list. Oh, you never signed up for the sexting list? Yeah, neither did the rest of us. Anyway. Okay. You want to dive in?
Yeah, let's do it.
I thought Wednesday night was really unique. It didn't hit me until after the game. I was laying in bed after the Warrior-Laker game, and it occurred to me that there has not been that meaningful of a Warriors game that just had that much like real world energy around it in 2 years?
When's the last time you watched an NBA game start to finish?
I mean, I've watched some NBA games start to finish, but like really not like that. Not like I did Wednesday night. Like
that's what I mean. When's the last time you watched an NBA game start to finish like you would a big game?
This year I went to a Warriors. I went to a couple games this year.
I'm not talking about ones you were going to call. I'm just saying, I'm not talking even the Warriors. I'm just talking for your entire life. I'm with you. I watched a lot of NBA games, non-Warrior game, and I did watch some Warriors games start to finish. Non-Warrior game, I didn't watch one start to finish. They couldn't keep my attention.
Yeah,
And one,
I don't think I did this year either, non-Warrior game.
It was historically the worst season in the history of the league in terms of discrepancies of games, right? I mean, there was several on a given night 30, 40-point blowouts. It was like an epidemic. Is that the right word? All over the league this year.
That's funny. It's a great word, especially because we've been using the word pandemic so much, but epidemic.
I know. That's why it came out of my mouth.
it.
I'm like, is this correct?
Yeah.
But it was a problem. Like the league just wasn't competitive this year. Not from like there weren't talented players or whatever, but when two teams would play, more often than not, one team would give up. You know, that's what made last night cool. Is like there's a lot on the line. I don't know. People are going to try.
Yeah.
And it's just something that the NBA has kind of gotten away from the last couple of years. And then you factor in Steph and LeBron. But really, to me, Steph is more fun to watch than LeBron at this point. I'm not some LeBron hater as a player.
No,
he's
no.
an all-time great, top 2 player. One thing I found out last night, like he doesn't do it for me anymore. And it's not really any fault of his own. It's just his law of diminishing returns. He's been around too long. Like Michael only played for 13 years. LeBron's going on like year 40.
I think the most respectful way to describe that for LeBron, because you're not saying he's not entertaining by NBA. I mean, he's like, I think Steph is the number one. Well, let me ask you this, because I think he is the number one. Him and Brady, probably the number one just guy that you have to watch. Mahomes, maybe, but I think Steph even has more. You know, now it's hard to compete with the NFL. But here's the way I would say it about LeBron. LeBron right now, to me, I mean, you got to watch him because he's in the biggest games and he's the best player. He feels like Clemson, Alabama national championship games. I got nothing but respect for Clemson, Alabama. The whole world knows they're the best programs in college football. But when those two play in the national title game, the ratings have gone down the more those teams play in the national title. LeBron played he played in 8 straight finals. He's played in 10. He's the greatest player. You can't overexpose the greatest player, but I think Steph, how many years really did we have of Steph as the clear number one MVP level, try and shoot as much, score as much as possible guy? Once KD arrived, we haven't had that guy for a few years. Now that guy's back, and they weren't great this year, but you had a playoff environment game. It was just a reminder. Not that there haven't been several reminders over the course of the year, but just on a big national stage.
Well, and one major difference last night is at the end of the day, whether LeBron had existed or instead of signing LeBron, they had signed Kevin Durant, like whoever the Lakers had and they were good, their brand is just going on 50-plus years of just generation after generation.
I know, it is crazy.
The Warriors are talked about this huge brand, and the thing you realize last night, it ain't the Warriors. It's Steph. Like the Lakers are not LeBron, right? They're the Lakers. Now, obviously, he's their best player, but like with Kobe and Shaq, like with Magic, like with Jerry, you just go through the years. Like they're just gonna, when LeBron goes, they'll just have 2 more stars, like just who they are. Obviously, the Warriors are gonna go big game hunting with Joe Lacob. That's how he thinks. But I don't know, unless you get a historically great player. That's one thing the Lakers have always done. They've just reloaded the clip, right? It's gonna be hard. And I think you're going to feel this a little bit with like New England and Belichick's still there. So it's still like
when Bill leaves is when it changes.
Yeah. It's like if Josh turns into the next Kyle Shanahan, McVay, and Mac Jones is, a top 5 player, then yeah, you'll be fine. But does it turn out like, no, it wasn't really the Patriots. It was Bill and Tom. Cause I'm watching the Warriors and I've said this forever. If it was Anthony Davis and James Harden, and let's say they were a top 2 or 3 team in the league, like they wouldn't do it for me. And part of it is that guy, and really Draymond and Clay. Like I just know what I'm getting in a big game. I want to be just like, okay, I'm in with these guys. Win or lose, I know I'm getting a big boy performance. And I don't even know why I did this, because there was a brief moment where I'm like, I'm not going to get too cocky on Twitter, but I hate that. One, I just hate the Lakers. 2, like I hate LeBron now, and I don't really have a reason. I just like rooting against him. Like I want him to fail. Like I'm actively rooting against him. And it might just be because like I hate the Lakers. It's just like, it's one of those things in me, still a little fanny, where I just see that brand. I hate them. And it could be jealousy from my youth, whatever. But it is what it is. And it's also what makes sports healthy. It drives me there to keep an eye on them. Right.
Absolutely.
So it's what you want. Like
when he's laying on the ground, you're yelling at the TV, get up, you're fine.
What was Paul Swearingen's thing about hate it or love it? You never want to be in the middle?
Paul was the guy who hired me in Fresno, my first radio job, and I produced the show for many years and worked with him. And he was just like, yeah, you be hated or loved, but if you're in the middle, that's called apathy. And I think we always talked about it from like a college football standpoint. Like, no one's buying your tickets, basically.
Yeah, I do think LeBron's Q rating with the average fan is probably down, but it's like I think people hating him is not a bad thing.
And people and that's the thing with Steph is it's harder and harder probably to find people. That was what the beauty of Steph initially was, all the shimmying and all that stuff. Is like you could find people. You had this guy who's just incredibly likable, but you could find people who hated him. Right?
I know people that hate him. I know people
kind of perfect.
I know people that don't like him.
Yeah, he's kind of perfect in the sense that he is joy, which I think is, if you could have one quality from an athlete, you'd want joy, because that's why people are coming to sports, is for some joy. So
Mahomes.
Mahomes. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like angry pitchers, angry linebackers, like all that stuff is just as good. But if you had like a face of the league, you'd want joy. But also he's like, you don't want to use the word arrogant or cocky, because those are like insinuate that the person hasn't earned it. But Steph just did things through his joy that pissed people off, and he's this perfect combination, because you can just argue about him all day long. So he's great. Like the NBA, the more of him, the better, because this version of Steph, which is just no matter where he is, he gets the shot, he gets to shoot, right? Like the end of that game, if Kevin Durant's on the team, they might win the game. They might at least hit a shot to tie the game. Why? It's harder to guard Steph and KD and Clay. Now, maybe if Clay's there, it's a different animal too, right? I think you saw that at the end of the game.
Well,
even just
those guys are there, they're not even in that game.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, you don't understand what I'm saying. A game in that circumstance.
Yeah.
But so you win less, but you add drama. Like adding Kevin, of course they should have added Kevin, but it removed drama from from not just from the Warriors games. It removed drama from the entire league, and to me, that's I think some of the early seeds for me of watching less regular season basketball started that year when the regular season I knew it didn't matter all that much, and it didn't. Right? And even a lot of the playoff games didn't matter, which, again, if you have the ability to build an unbeatable team, you should build it 100 times out of 100. But we get some of the Steph back now where, he needs to have these heroic moments because he's not on a super team.
Yeah, I think
and that's good.
Last night was just a game that was what the NBA desperately needs. It just reminded me of when the league was cool. I mean, they're a league that's taken on a lot of water and a lot of toxicity, just negative, just kind of indifference, which is never good for your sport. And clearly the ratings reflected that. Last night was like, damn, I had to watch it. And just back to original point, like I hadn't really thought about like that in a couple of years. Now it's unique. I mean, it's your two most famous players. Yeah. So it's just, and if Kevin is in their world, Kevin doesn't force people.
But John, this is what, remember, you've said this about Brady and, Brady Manning played a ton. Like part of this is you just need your best players to play repeatedly in big games, and that's really good for you. Period.
Well, it's impossible in the NBA now. I was listening to some of Simmons had Dirk on, just because I just love Dirk Nowitzki, and he just talked about they were just going through from 02 to 11, all these devastating losses and unreal wins. It's like you just had all this equity. That's the league I grew up on. You just attached to a team. You rooted for your squad. You had a couple teams you hated. You know what that is? That's the National Football League.
Yeah.
You just get a team, and you have a decent idea who their core is going to be at minimum for 4 or 5 years. The NBA a year later is like, I'm out. See ya. It's like, well, you can't even go. No, you got to trade me. It's like, well, you got 17 years left on your contract. Fuck you, I'm out. It's like, Jesus.
Yep. I don't know. All right, well, I'll enjoy this while we got Steph. The more Steph, the better. In postseason stuff. Who needs to score 35? The whole team's entertaining, too.
Yeah.
Jordan Poole, Draymond.
Thoroughly enjoyed the game.
Yeah. All right, John. I got a little take for you about 49ers rookie running back Trey Sermon and whether or not he could be the offensive rookie of the year. I was looking at the offensive rookie of the year odds, and I think he's a value pick. Now, before I tell you why, I'll tell you this. Trevor Lawrence is the favorite at 2-1. Trey Lance is actually 5-1, second best odds. Justin Fields is 5.5-1. Mac Jones is 8-1. Anybody else you want to know about?
Najee Harris.
Not on this list, but Trey Sermon, if you come up with another name as we talk, I'll give it to you. Trey Sermon is 40-1 to be the offensive rookie of the year. And, when you look back at the history of offensive rookies of the year, it is a pretty distinguished list. Like, it's a pretty good indicator of who's about to be great in the NFL. Herbert won it last year, Kyler the year before, Saquon, Alvin Kamara, Dak Prescott, Todd Gurley, Odell, Eddie Lacy, RG3, Cam Newton, Bradford, Percy Harvin, Matt Ryan, Adrian Peterson, Vince Young, Cadillac Williams, Roethlisberger, Anquan Bolden. So we're getting superstars. But there were two guys that stood out to me when I looked at the list of offensive rookies of the year. The guy that won it the year before Anquan in 2003, and the guy that won it in the year 2000. The year 2000, a Broncos running back by the name of Mike Anderson, and in 2002, a Broncos running back by the name of Clinton Portis. And I'm not saying Trey Sermon is going to be the guy, should be the guy, but when I look back and I see two running backs from Mike Shanahan winning Offensive Rookie of the Year 3 years apart, I think, why can't Trey Sermon have that kind of production? Now, it takes a high level of production, but to me it is an indicator that there might be some value in him as the 49ers running back. We know they got a lot of running backs. We know that sometimes the running backs get hurt. We know that sometimes guys who are not expecting to be great in that system are great, right? It's happened in Washington. It's happened for them. But here is Trey Sermon, who, it was a third-round pick. Third-round picks usually are not Offensive Rookie of the Year. But what round would he have been a second-round pick in 2002? Back when we drafted running backs a little bit higher, that's what Clinton Portis was. Mike Anderson was a sixth-round pick who turned into the Offensive Rookie of the Year. Now, what's it going to take? I'll tell you what those two guys did: 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns rushing. So it takes a lot. It takes a lot. But if one thing leads to another, why couldn't Trey Sermon find himself as the feature back in this Niners offense this year? And if he does, then to me, he's got a real shot at being the Offensive Rookie of the Year.
You know what's funny is I was about to be like, well, guy, it was post Elway. I bet it was just a run-heavy team. I type in 2000 Denver Broncos. Obviously, he had, like you said, 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns. It's like I bet they didn't pass that well. They had multiple 100-yard or 100-catch receivers in Rod Smith and McCaffrey, who accounted for 17 total touchdowns. So they were just a prolific offense, because my take was going to be like, well, Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, like they're going to be pretty pass heavy. Well, actually, when you have a really balanced offense, it enables you to slice them and dice them more. I think 2 years ago with Jimmy, when it was kind of a group by committee, but it was like they were gashing people, but especially the second half of the year. But Jimmy was still throwing well. It just enables you to be a balanced offense. So, yeah, I mean, this offense is conducive. My thing would be that year, he got almost 300 carries. I'm just using Mike Anderson. I don't know. Clinton Portis was obviously, when you draft a second-round running back and he was coming from the U and their peak teams, like it was probably even more powerful than Trey Sermon, because Trey Sermon had to transfer, texting with their guys at Oklahoma. It was just like, he didn't feel, and I saw him talk about this at the Niners press conference, why he transferred ultimately, like he wasn't just the featured back. Now, it shows you how good he was. He transferred to Ohio State.
Right. So
like he's viewed as a blue chip guy. And then it took him a while, because I watched his press conference. I just typed in, I actually think he'd be a good podcast guest. If we go to minicamp, it's just in the back of my head, just because I think he's kind of got some unique stories. Like it's the power of the places he went. He was kind of banged up, and it took him a while to get like his feet under him at Ohio State. But obviously, the last 3 games of the season he set a Big Ten all-time record. But even then, the next game in the playoffs, he ran for almost 200 yards. Like he is a blue chip guy. Is he going to get? So Mike Anderson, 297. If I told you he got 180 carries, doesn't that feel like a lot?
It would feel like a lot, but I mean,
they did draft another running back, Elijah Mitchell, and they have Mozart, who has proven when he's on the field, he is a dynamic NFL player.
But also can get hurt.
Yeah, but my point is, even if he just gives you 17 games, if he just gives you 8 games when he's fully healthy, like he's getting touches.
Yeah,
right?
It's to me, it's why it's not a prediction. I think it's just a value. But you're right. I mean,
I don't like to take
Kamara.
My other pushback would be, when you just talk about draft picks, for the most part, like if you take a first or second wide receiver, you're just kind of going to go down swinging with that guy. His rookie year, right?
Yeah.
After a couple years, you'd be like, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside just doesn't get to play. But that first year, with a running back, even a third-round guy, if the sixth-round guy, they did draft a guy in the 6th round whose stats were really good, and his measurables are really good.
His tape is good, too. He looks sweet.
I mean, it's not inconceivable that, like, that guy just is the star running back.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Now, Mike Anderson, John, when he won it, you know how old Mike Anderson was as a rookie in 2000? 27 years old. Mike Anderson had been a Marine for 4 years before he went to the University of Utah and played at Utah.
That's pretty badass. I remember that kind of vaguely, but when you say it, I was like, oh yeah, that sounds familiar. That's
a badass
that's pretty
resume.
Badass story. What have you done? Yeah, I'm a Marine. I ran for 1,500 yards as a rookie.
Decided to go to college than the NFL.
I don't think that gets enough play to this day.
No,
right?
John, one of my favorite phrases that everyone uses. We don't talk about it enough. There's a lot going on in my life. I don't have time to talk about Mike Anderson every day. But Saquon, his rookie year was 260 carries and 90 catches.
He was the number 2 pick in the draft.
Well, I'm just saying that's incredible production, right? 90
you're
catches.
Just saying what you have to produce to win the award.
Yeah, again, Mike Anderson was 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns, 23 catches. Clinton was 15 rushing touchdowns plus another 2 receiving touchdowns and 33 catches. You know, if you told me right now Trey Sermon's got 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns, you'd be like, Offensive Rookie of the Year or MVP candidate. That'd be incredible. So it's not likely, but I also think, okay, let's talk about the other aspect. Who do you like? Do you like Jamar Chase? Do you like Kyle Pitts? Do you like one of the Alabama receivers? Do you like Waddle, or is Devontae Smith going to put up numbers playing with Jalen Hurts? Is Waddle going to put up numbers playing with Tua?
To me, Najee Harris could be a guy that they're going to try to keep Ben fresh, give him the ball a lot, he can catch. You'd say Travis Etienne, team's going to suck, and they're moved in a wide receiver, so I'd probably say no there. The Broncos, if they were to get Rodgers, which it's just Twitter, but I just see a lot of Broncos to Rodgers Twitter. If he were to get traded,
yeah,
which I guess he's going on Kenny Mayne's last Sports Center or something. He's in Hawaii. I somehow stumbled upon this deep dive of his private jet that flew out, and he hasn't left Hawaii in 2 weeks. They drafted the UNC running back, who people loved, that I could just see having a big year. You could argue if Rodgers doesn't come and they just play with Teddy and Locke, they could just run the shit out of the ball. People love that guy.
Yeah.
But, 17 games. To me, a wide receiver, most rookie wide receivers, Justin Jefferson was probably by far the most productive guy last year. Most of the higher drafted guys are going with questionable quarterbacks.
How about Rashad Bateman?
Would you trust Tua? Would you trust Jalen Hurts? Bateman, even do you trust
Ravens.
Lamar to be that's a lot. Waddle, who else? Well, my point is Justin Jefferson did
Devontae
go to
Smith,
Kirk Cousins, who just went to a good place. Remember 2 years ago, DK Metcalf just got to go to Russell Wilson. You are pretty dependent on having an upper tier quarterback.
I think it's why Trey Lance is 5-1, even though we don't even know if he's the quarterback.
Would you feel good about betting on any of the 5 quarterbacks?
I'd feel best about Trey Lance. Just given
what
that.
What about Trevor? Just be able to throw up some stats.
No. I mean, I think he's going to be a good player, but the Jags?
Yeah, but Cam, that year that he won it, the next year they drafted Luke Kuechly. They drafted in the top 10. So you don't need to win. Now, to me, Cam was just an eye test. You're like, holy shit.
To your point, Burrow was an eye test.
You can be an eye test.
Burrow was. The Bengals were bad. Burrow, you watched him, you went, that might be the rookie of the year this year, right? Even though it was clear the Bengals weren't going to be good. So maybe that is an argument.
I think Kyler was a little eye testy.
He was definitely eye testy.
They did not win, but it was okay, this guy was worthy of a top pick, just the physical talent. Yeah. I think you can be eye testy as a quarterback. You can't be eye testy as a running back. You're right. He would need 1,100 yards. It's not, listen, I mean, to me, them drafting in the 3rd round, they clearly like him, right? I mean, I think that looking at Mike Shanahan with Clinton Portis, he drafted a guy in the 2nd round. That guy's playing a lot. But Alfred Morris, remember the year that RG3 won it? He was a 6th round pick, and he ran for 1,500 yards. One thing's clear, the 2 running back picks, I think they want 2,500 yards of rushing, right? Just this season. I guess that number, with 17th game, they want to run the shit out of the football.
To your point.
I think that's part of the thing, Josh Jacobs with the Raiders. Remember, it was clear, okay, he's really good from the jump. And the difference of the Shanahan probably, and I think Gruden has learned this because he just got Kenyon Drake, and last year they tried to get the dude from Utah, who I like, but he just, you probably ideally want a little bit better of a backup. you want to have multiple guys to keep even your horse fresh. Nick Chubb and what's his name, Kareem Hunt, and they're probably the best duo in the league.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, running backs you could argue, maybe used a little. Like in 2019, Tevin Coleman, Raheem Mostert, Matt Breida, 137 attempts for Coleman, 137 attempts for Mostert, 123 attempts for Breida. Mostert led the team with 770 rushing yards.
Now Mostert,
back when we called him Mozart.
Mostert.
Last year,
he became.
Yeah, I mean it's hard because no one's playing 16 games for this group, right?
And to me, touchdowns alone don't get it, because you could get 9 touchdowns and 7 of them could come at the goal line, right? Because just when I saw the video of Trey Lance and Trey Sermon walking out to practice, I was like, oh, no wonder Ohio State and Oklahoma like this. He's fucking big.
Yeah.
He is not some little remember seeing Matt Breida? Matt Breida was tiny.
Breida.
He could fly. Breida. He could
People
fly.
Start yelling at us, you get it wrong. Yeah. No, I mean if Trey Lance is your quarterback, it also just gives you some other. Imagine him. Imagine a healthy Niners offense on the goal line. You got a lot of options of how to get the ball into the end zone, right?
Yeah.
End arounds.
Chubby Jimmy's going to have something to say about Trey getting in the game.
Lance. Yeah. John, sleepnumber.com/ham. Sleepnumber.com/ham. Right now, you save $1,000 on the new Sleep Number 360 special edition smart bed during the Memorial Day sale. Only at sleepnumber.com/ham.
Guy, you know the key to life? The key to happiness? Getting a good night's sleep. Studies have shown, I can speak from personal experience, I know you can too, the better night's sleep I get, the better I feel. The more energy I have, but here's the key. The more positive I am that day. I feel better. I feel better about myself. I feel better about my workday. I'm more productive. I get more done. The more you get done, what does that mean? Usually the more money you make. The better you do whatever you do for a living, right? If you're listen, we got a younger demo. You're in school. You want to do that homework? No one ever wants to do homework if you're sleepy. You're like, I'll go back to sleep. But if you're not sleepy, you're like, I'll just bang it out. That's the key. Sleepnumber.com/ham. Can't recommend it enough.
Yep. Your REM sleep creates your creativity, creates that good memory, creates that positivity. Sleep Number IQ sleepers, proven to sleep longer and better. Right now, discover proven quality sleep and save $1,000 on the new Sleep Number 360 Special Edition Smart Bed Memorial Day sale. Only at Sleep Number stores or sleepnumber.com/ham.
We got you, dog.
All right, how about this one, John? Not on purpose that we're talking about this the same day we talk about the Trey Sermon possibilities, but and Florio wrote about this, so Florio did get a headline despite Shanahan's wishes. Nick Bosa, 5th among comeback player of the year odds at 7-1. The favorite is Dak, 1.75-1. Saquon Barkley, Joe Burrow, Christian McCaffrey at 6-1. And we did see the other day Kyle Shanahan talking about Michael Irvin, said he changes who we are. What do you think about Bosa's opportunity?
So he's the only defensive guy on the top of the list.
Top 5, yeah.
I would say that's usually a good thing, so you can separate yourself. And that also means they're not, quote-unquote, prominent. It's not like Aaron Donald or Khalil Mack's coming back from a broken foot or anything.
Von Miller's coming back from injury.
True. Older player, though. Yep. You would say more likely than not past his prime. Though I followed him on Instagram for years. Vaughn always looks like he's kind of a slimmer, smaller player. So he always just looks like, God, he could just bounce back. So, that's not, Vic Fangio is probably one of the all-time great outside linebacker coaches, despite being a coordinator. Like, that's his kind of baby, right? The pass rush, those guys up front. So, that's something to keep an eye on. And I could see, like, if the Broncos have a good season, he would probably be a prominent role. It's a good name. Those top 4, Burrow would probably be their team, just might suck. But the others are pretty prominent names, right? 2 years ago, McCaffrey, didn't he set the record for back-to-back years with, like,
1,000 receiving
1,000 yards and 100 Yeah, or something.
Wasn't it 1,000? Wasn't that the deal?
That's what I think it was. Yeah, that's what I think it was. And then, Saquon is just a star talent if their team is just better. And also Dak, when he shattered his ankle, wasn't he on pace to shatter the record for like yards and like his path as a statistical quarterback? And you just go on paper, they are pretty loaded on offense, right? They got 3 legit wide receivers. I saw something on the internet that Zeke must have been training. He looked pretty good. I think he kind of got shit on last year, like he's over the hill. I could see him having a little something to prove, and that just helps Dak out.
I mean, Dak. Did you say wasn't Dak leading the league in passing when he got hurt?
Well, wasn't he like in several statistical categories? Like they were just on pace to be like one of the greatest offenses ever, but they were
which was going to be impressive for a team that was under 500.
Yeah. So, and I think people just kind of rooting for him. Maybe a little less now that he got $800 million.
Yeah, but I think you could root for Dak on the premise that like people say he's not worth it. So you root for a guy to prove those people.
They go 10-7 and win the East. They're the Cowboys. Barkley, their offensive line might suck, so I'd say Bosa could beat him out. He just might. But McCaffrey, if now has a better quarterback, and Dak would be two pretty prominent figures.
Yeah. And you got...
Was McCaffrey really gone for that long? I guess he was injured last year.
Yeah.
Their team was just so irrelevant.
Carson Wentz is on the list?
I think he could be a major... Couldn't he be a major factor? I'd say 9-1. If I put $100 on one, I'd be more likely to put it on Wentz than Bosa, because I think Bosa could have like an all-pro season. But if the Colts are like the 2 seed and Wentz just has a season where he throws like 38 touchdowns and 12 picks, and people just, to me especially, like, we love this guy. Like, this is the narrative coming out of the building, like the Buckners and the Quentin Nelsons and the Ballards, like, this is everything we wanted. And then the hate on the Eagles. I could see the snowball of positivity for Carson. Might be short-lived, but it would be this year.
Well, he's going to be the biggest. His return is a bigger NFL story than Dak's return, I think. Even though Dak's the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys.
Because Dak just got injured. He was never like, people were like always like, oh, we love the guy. Like people acted like Carson's a bad guy.
Got ran out of town, and not just any town, Philadelphia. So I think the thing,
and much bigger than Bosa, just because the Niners have a lot of other star players.
Yeah, and there's no controversy with him. Now, I do think, to Kyle's point, like he is critically important to the team. Obviously, he's one of the best players in the league when he's healthy. The question for me is not does he produce, it's just is he healthy? If he's healthy, he's going to produce. The thing you would say about a defensive player, he's not as dependent on getting his numbers on the other guys on his team. Although, I mean, sacks are something that can get helped by teammates, right? Justin Smith and Aldon Smith. So if the team around him is better, it helps him. But the problem is Carson's got a good team around him. Offensively, Dak has a good team around him. So quarterbacks, while they're somewhat reliant on other players, those guys you would say have players that they can rely on around them. Now, Bosa could just rip off 16 sacks, right? We don't actually care who wins the Comeback Player of the Year award. It's more about, is Bosa back? Because here's the thing. Dak being back, does that mean he's a tier 1 quarterback? Not necessarily, if he's just back. It's hard to even remember. Is Carson back based on the 1 year that he had that he looked like he was going to be an MVP? Like, is that what his standard is? I know what Bosa's standard is. Bosa's standard is one of the best pass rushers. If he's healthy, then we make the short list of the best pass rushers in the league. He's on it.
Yeah, to me, what they need out of him is just one of those, the Khalil Mack season where he was like all pro at 2 different positions. Now, obviously that wouldn't happen to Bosa, but like the Aaron Donald's like second year was like, okay, what was kind of expected out of him last year, they just need him to be a star. And to me, if he's a star, he'll get votes. It'll probably be difficult to win it because typically it's just, last year Alex was a unique player, but an offensive guy can just tear his ACL and the next year come back and be an all-pro, and it's just so much sexier that they just need him to be like a first or second team all-pro and be one of the considered the best pass rushers in the league, and they'll be fine. And then it'll just take care of itself. To me, he'd probably have to be historically like do something like 19 sacks to win the award. But the Niners would sign up for like 14 and a half and just dominating the run game and just being one of the best players in the league.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, taking back, like,
I guess 17 games, 13 sacks used to sound like a lot. Is like 15 the new 13? That extra game, a lot more reps.
You would take that right now, 15 without. If I told you he's got 15, 14 and a half, you'd take it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think he had 9 his rookie year, right?
I think one of the 9 his rookie year. Yeah, I think one of the things with him is when he's healthy, he becomes, because he is a big personality. You think of him like in that Ravens game, right, slopping around. The flag wave.
He plays like a big personality, but him and Joey are both kind of quiet
off the
right?
field. But like the flag wave thing, right? Like he just is he's a face of your franchise if he's healthy. He just hasn't been healthy enough to really be a face of the franchise type player. But if he's healthy, he's right up there with anybody else that you would say on this Niner team. I mean, he can be as big as it gets. The way Vaughn got, the way Chase Young in a short amount of time has done for Washington football team, right? Like, to me, pass rushers by far on defense become they can represent the personality of your team more than any other position. Now, you can get linebackers or safeties, corner, whatever, but pass rushers can, I don't know, they just change the way you look at an entire defense.
Well, I think the Browns are a great example. Like last year, it was clear, and I think Browns fans might tell you it's been a couple years, but it's harder when your team sucks. Like once they got Stefanski, and then you just watch a random Browns game, you're like, I don't think the offensive tackle can touch Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
And now they're just like, just throw Clowney, whether he's great, not whatever. Who cares? We got Myles Garrett, right? He makes everyone look better. Now, I don't even think Bosa like quite has that talent. Like he's just bigger, he's faster, he's bendier. And again, this Myles Garrett go down as like the greatest player in the history of the league if he really just like has like an 8-year run of just doing what he's capable of doing. I mean, he's an all-time physical freak. But I think you see it with Joey is the same way as Nick. They can just be elite players. Like every time they step on the field, whether they're the best player, like there ain't 5 players better than them on any given field. Like they are as good as anybody. And that to me is that's what the Niners had immediately with Nick, which I didn't quite expect it. I'll be honest, I was a little low on him. I'd say my greatest media miss would be McCaffrey. I said he'll be Edelman. That's clearly not the case. He's a great talent. I kind of just went against the grain. It was a little Louis Riddick on me just because everyone was blowing Nick Bosa.
Anti-white guys. That's what you are.
Yeah, a little anti-white guy / the chances like he's really going to be as good as Joey. And it's like he's actually kind of maybe better. He's a little different. Joey's more power. Nick's a little more
we
speed.
need like 2 or 3 years of health from both of them to really have that conversation.
I mean, Joey's been doing it for a little longer. Like Joey's pretty well.
Joey's been paid already.
Joey's got $100 million. Yeah. You know, we're still a couple years away from Nick getting paid. He's had one season.
But here, the other area where he's really valuable, it's not just his sack number, right? It's not just him being healthy to get his own. You are so invested in this defensive line financially with Armstead at whatever he is, $20 million, and a very high first-round pick in Kinlaw. And, you know, those two guys are both kind of tied to the DeForest Buckner trade that they need to be better. And, I don't know that Armstead's in his prime right now. I don't know that there's another level to his ability. Kinlaw, you definitely think there is. But, I would think Bosa helps those two guys so much, which is so critical because you've invested so much in them, right? So it doesn't, having the grippiest car tires that you can buy on the market do nothing for you if they're sitting on a Toyota Camry. So you need this whole thing to work together. Like it's got to work together.
I think the hard part about DeForest is I think typically if you just look back at some of the Belichick trades over the years, it's hard. They sold early and they had to do it big picture.
And they kind of bought on Armstead, right?
Yeah, but to me, you just typically like you sold on like Richard Seymour could be kind of like wanted a ton of money and was kind of a pain. Belichick did it when Mankins was older. It was a lot of times older. Like he usually gave his elite players first contracts, a second contract. Like they got 7-8 years on the Patriots. Like DeForest he got his 4 years, right? And then he got paid going into his 5th. Just maybe he got 5 years. I can't even remember now. But my point is, I just follow the Colts on YouTube. Like he's one of the faces of their team. And he's an elite all-pro and just one of the I bet if you just ask like random scouts and coaches in the league, like who's a guy you just respect on tape, they'd be like that fucking Buckner guy, man.
If I said,
and it's like Armstead. I mean, the Niners would shave his contract by a third right now if they could, right? Get it to like $5 million.
If I said Armstead and Kinlaw for Buckner,
Ballard would hang up,
and the Niners would do that deal. Now again, part of this is banking on Kinlaw doesn't have to be Buckner, but the two of them together have to combine for more than Buckner's value.
Honestly, I don't even think Ballard would say like, yeah, can I have a meeting with my guys? He would just like, yeah, no.
No, you wouldn't. Yeah. That'd be a great clip on the Colts.com video that they would make.
Off the ACL, you wouldn't trade Buckner straight up for Bosa.
No. But we'll see. Part of this is Kinlaw's.
Yeah, we'll see.
Players got to get better. Kinlaw's got to get better. He can. Okay, so we've talked about this a lot. Well, first of all, we talked about it a lot in the context of draft rumors, the lack of draft rumors. We didn't know what was real, what wasn't real. You and I had our suspicions. In the end, they don't draft Mac Jones. They draft Trey Lance. And on the YouTube, I've got the photo up here, John, of the product that Colin Cowherd invented the other day, San Francisco Seal. There is no leak. Now, I've seen some people push back, not on Colin's take that the Niners don't leak, but just over the months where we've talked about it. We've talked about it for a long time, that one thing that changed pretty quickly the second they took over. Really, before they took over, this was a story, right? This was one of the things that the organization really had to address. It's now a strength. Remember, one of the things with Kyle Shanahan was like, was it Shanahan or Lynch? It was basically, I'm walking if anything leaks from this interview process.
It was Lynch.
It was Lynch. Now, and I've seen over the last few months, as we've talked about this, people like, no, but we did know they liked Solomon, and we did know they liked. I think one thing is clear: when they have to protect it, they can. Once they've kind of made up their decision and they're in control, like Eisen did say Trey Lance the day before, but by that time maybe they were done hiding it. But this is
they told Jed on Wednesday,
right?
On Tuesday,
exactly.
One thing when we had a radio show in the peak of, for a lot of people, like, you guys just blow the Niners. Unless I don't even know if the archives exist, but
they don't.
There was not a more negative two people consistently on the Niners, because they were a full blown embarrassment. And I think one thing I used to openly say, and it was kind of openly written about, Kwame was on this, like the leak was, and I don't know if, I don't live in every market, but I follow the NFL pretty closely, and this, maybe things have just dramatically changed in 5 years, and this thing would become more like viral. Jed was viewed as the leak. The owner was viewed in our medium, in print medium, the way fans talked about it, like Jed was the guy who constantly talked and leaked everything to his reporters. I mean, that was one of Tim's main thing when he was, I would say, the most prominent guy that covered, wouldn't you say, the Niners divorce with Harbaugh and just that kind of year of Tim just getting, what would happen in Philly or New York. We don't really have that out here. And Tim and Jed, but it was like Jed was the leak. And I think one thing's clear, like, is Trent Baalke like a big leaker? Are really most GMs like Rick Spielman or just John Schneider, are they like, we got to get this out? Maybe occasionally when you got to do something strategically. There's nothing wrong with that. It's part of the game. I think pretty consistently, whether it was good or bad, early on in the decade, it might have been Harbaugh, but it led in with Chip and Tom Sula, that I think it was very, very difficult for Jed not to talk. And it might be just as simple as he loved these two guys now, and he knows it's important to them. He doesn't say anything. Because my thing with John, clearly, like, is friends with Cowherd, is friends with Glazer. Like, they talk. I'm pretty positive. Not saying Kyle doesn't have like media friends. I'm sure he does. Like, not like Chris Sims, like just people that text with him or whatever. I truly believe he doesn't give a flying fuck what is written or said.
No, I agree. I believe it too. And if there was ever a example, Chris Sims having no idea who he's taking is a pretty good example, right?
Now they could have been in cahoots.
They absolutely could have. Yeah. And I suggested as much, but yeah, they could have been in cahoots. But again, the information didn't get out. So,
in fairness to Chris, he's been adamant. Like, why would I? These are my opinions. I like the guy.
I don't think Chris knew. I believe that Chris did not know, and I think it's a great example of what you just said about Kyle. I also think you think about, you're like, what did you say? John Schneider doesn't leak. What was the other name you said?
I just use like Rick Spielman in Minnesota.
Rick Spielman in Minnesota. I mean, what you're talking about are,
I tried to pick like football guys,
Yeah, but what you really say, think about the list of guys you don't think leak. And then let's go through what is common with those guys. I bet by and large they're pretty stable. They've had their job, they've been successful. They're not on the hot seat every year. Like, you leak when you have a reason to leak, and usually you're trying to defend yourself, or like stable organizations typically don't leak because they don't have to. They can just go about their business, right? They don't have to play the game. Like, there's a lot of games that we all play in this game of life, and some of them you would play no matter what, and some of them you play because you got to play them. And the leak game is not a game you play because it's a waste of your energy, unless you got to play it. And the only time you really got to play it is when you have to swing public opinion about yourself, when there's some power struggle going on, when you got to make yourself look good because somebody else is attacking you, right? Like, think about what's been happening with the ownership at the Washington football team. Like, it's just this constant, there's this battle going on. Stable organizations.
They try to do a hostile takeover.
Yeah. Stable organizations don't do it because you wouldn't waste your time with it unless there was a benefit to you. And if you're stable, there's no benefit. People just respect you for what you do. So they're stable now. And it's you could go chicken or the egg. Like, the fact that those guys were adamant about not leaking was a hint that stability was really important to them.
The Niners thing was out of control the Harbaugh time, right? Remember, it was
yeah.
week 1, they were playing the Cowboys, Jim's 4th year. He's going to get fired, right? Remember, the locker room hates him. It was just one, every week it was a story. That offseason, Florio, the trade, it was crazy. Like, it was.
They were going to trade Harbaugh.
The Niners jumped the shark on the leaks. Like, they couldn't keep their mouth shut. And I think looking back, it's a very good educated guess. We all assumed at the time it was Jed.
I would also say, looking back, it's a little bit understandable.
Well, yeah, he had to get things out.
Public opinion was all on Harbaugh's side.
Yeah, you had to get it out that he's a crazy SOB. And I think what he learned, no one gives a shit. When you win, you could tell me, Jed, he told you to pull your pants down, run around the practice field. Just do unlimited laps. Like, the fans would have laughed. Maybe Jed learned from it. I don't know. Maybe it's easy because he respects John and Kyle. That was a 100% lose. Jed lost. Jed lost that heavily, right? I mean, he got, if that was a game, Harbaugh versus Jed. Now, it's aged. It hasn't gotten great for Harbaugh, but just Harbaugh with the Niners and the Harbaugh firing to go to Tom Sula and Chip is like 100-0 to Harbaugh. Just everything. Jed lost. Like, he got destroyed. Because he kept trying to double down on the PR game. My whole take on the PR game, I think it's very overrated. Like, just let your stuff speak for itself.
Sure,
and you get too caught up on that.
I also do understand. Yeah, I understand at that level.
You had to do something with a divorce, but it's just like he wouldn't let it go.
I also think the mistake, now that we have hindsight, the mistake was not moving on from Harbaugh. The mistake was who got hired after Harbaugh.
Yeah.
As we're discussing this, let's include a YouTube comment because Troy says on YouTube, Troy says 1 year out of how many, and that makes you stable? Thinky emoji. There's a difference between winning and just being stable people, being a stable organization, right? Being people that don't have any interest in playing that game. And I think part of it is that the Niners, I think John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan are pretty self-confident, who they are, what they're doing, why they're doing it. Time will tell if they need to win, right? But you can be a stable person and have a stable organization even if your win-loss record is not stable.
I got another one for you. There is a dramatic difference between having one good season, aka like making the playoffs, and going to the Super Bowl. There just is. Like, you can go around the league. Like, there have been several teams in the NFL that, like, when Minnesota go to Super Bowl, Lions go to Super Bowl, Texans go to Super Bowl, like, most teams don't go to the Super Bowl. They help. I bet if you look the last 20 years, how many teams have not made a championship game, right? Like, that's – I know Raider fans always get offended. Like, they had 1 year. Like, yeah, their 1 year went to the fucking – if the Raiders went to the Super Bowl, you guys would fucking throw a party, and deservingly so, even if you lost it. Like, it's a big deal. It's simply a big deal. The Cowboys, it speaks to how big their brand is, have not been to a championship game since 95, 96 season, whatever, that last – their last Super Bowl in their three-peat. They haven't been to a championship game. That means they haven't made it past the second round. And they've had a lot of, like, productive playoff. I bet they've made the playoffs, just if I had to guess off the top of my head, in the last 20 years, 7-8 times, right? Just be a wild card team stuff. That they haven't made it past the second round. Like, that's doing that. Like, obviously the game is like why the Chiefs get all the credit now. It's like 3 straight years of championship games, back-to-back Super Bowls. They won one. Like, the highest level is just rattling off like championship games, right? And then win like every 5 years, win a Super Bowl. If you can do like a Brady and Belichick, win like 2 of 4, whatever. But
how about like last year, it falls apart on you and you still win your division?
Who's that?
The Seahawks.
Yeah, they're a great example. Like, the Niners have to do that. Like, they're not the Rams have had much more success in 4 years than the Niners, right? Because they've both been to a Super Bowl, and the Rams haven't had a losing season the other 3 years.
Yeah.
Right? And they've made the playoffs twice. They've won a playoff game. Yeah, that's not – I completely agree. But to act like it's just some random one-off, like going to a Super Bowl, like the year the Falcons lost to the Super Bowl was a really big deal for the franchise, right? Yeah. I know it sucked the way to lose 28-3. Now, part of why it turned out they crumbled, the reason they crumbled – because the reason they were great was their offensive the offense, and then the coach leaves, and then they weren't quite the same. So can the Niners, can their defense maintain good? There are questions. No one's putting this thing in stone, but clearly Kyle and John are good.
Yeah,
now, John has a huge role. We'll find out personnel stuff. They've had a lot of misses, like a lot of teams. I think we know Kyle's really good.
Yeah, and here's a comment on YouTube from Jacob. They still have a lot to prove, no question. But here's what they don't have to prove is that they know how to just run an organization. They know how to run a solid organization, hierarchy, talented people working together, not infighting. If there is, it doesn't get out. Keep it in-house, right? Unified messaging, those types of things. They still got to win a bunch of football games, no question. But that, to me, the point of this conversation, here's one thing that the organization struggled with, that good organizations do consistently, that we can say pretty definitively they do consistently. Agree?
Facts.
Yeah. John, speaking of facts, how about the facts about Geology, which we're a fan of? Geology.com/ham. Geology.com/ham gets you 40% off any trial product. And right now you can pre-order already 20% off the new SPF 30 unisex face sunscreen.
Yep. Geology.com/ham. I have it. You have it. Listen, we all got different skin tones. Some people have oily. Some people have dry. Some people need to exfoliate more. Some people need to use a lighter wash. Some people need to moisturize more. That's where Geology has you covered. They had me covered. They have Haberman covered. A lot of guys, it's for years, been washing our face with bar soap. Time to get with the times, people. It's 2021. Make yourself look good. Geology. I got the repairing night cream in my hands right now. I got the Vital morning face cream. I
use that every day.
Galore.
Creams
galore, guys.
I use the Vital morning face cream every day, John. So like you said, some people you need to fight acne. For me, reduce oiliness. You can help prevent some wrinkles, maybe combat some dark or puffy under eyes. Hopefully you get the sleep number and the dark puffy under eyes ain't your problem. But that can be your problem even if you're getting 9 hours. Every body is different. And Geology's got something for all of you right now. Geology.com/ham. Save up to 40% on all trials and get ready for just your day-to-day in the sun. It doesn't just mean being on the beach with the SPF 30 unisex face sunscreen, which you can pre-order right now. These are all highly high-quality products, what I'm trying to say. The sunscreen, 2 years in the making. Right now, geology.com/ham.
Do it.
All right. A couple other things I want to hit with you. Tony La Russa. Now, I have a weakness, and I've talked about this weakness before. You know about it. I think you have it too, because you just explained about it with Nick Bosa. If everybody piles on someone one direction, I tend to go the other way, and it can bite you because you can ignore things that are in front of your face. Out of spite, I just liked Jay Cutler for many years because I was like, the rest of you can shove it. Get off this guy's case. Turns out people were just kind of right? And that's how you felt about Bosa. So I'm not here to defend Tony La Russa because I think even though I actually swinging 3-0 up 15-4, it's just basic sportsmanship. The same way you're up 30 in a basketball game, you don't start hoisting threes. I don't think that's that crazy of an unwritten rule, but you can disagree if you want. Dude starts throwing 45 miles an hour, all bets are off. You do whatever the hell you want when the guy's throwing half as fast. He's a position player. That said,
they were buddies too from the Dominican or whatever. They had known.
Did you see this year when Rizzo faced Freddie Freeman?
Yeah, and laughing.
Yeah, it's they just come on, Tony, ease up. That said, I think there are fewer and fewer people like Tony La Russa in sports. We're gonna miss them when they're gone. Dying breed. My favorite part of that story was Lance Lynn on his team saying, basically, Tony doesn't know. I'm with Mercedes, the player. I'm not with Tony. And Tony said, Lance has a locker. I have an office. At some point, leadership at some point, leadership is you're supposed to represent. I don't forget that part. Lance has a locker. I have an office. Now, he's wrong about being able to swing 3-0, 45 miles an hour, but coaches, managers, they're not taking on their own guys in the media anymore. And a little personality, not everybody has to agree. Like, that's good for sports. And the future managers of this game are not saying things like, he's got a locker, I've got an office, like, I'm the boss.
Well, I mean, I think one of the greatest sound bites in the history of sporting sound bites is Tommy Lasorda on Bavacqua. Now, granted, he was on another team, but I think the key was the sports we grew up on. You know, even Lasorda was older. Hell, Tony La Russa was older, like when we were like 12, you know. But Phil Jackson used to go out of his way. One, he'd crush his own guys. I mean, he wrote a book who crushed Kobe, and then he went back to coach him. But he would always talk shit about other coaches. These coaches, Bill Parcells was famous for crushing his own players. Like Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, like they crushed Jared Goff through Michael Silver. They never really said anything. Even to this day, Sean is not going to say anything bad. They're part of what makes sports great are the characters.
Absolutely.
And listen, I don't want to sound like an old get off my lawn. I'm 36 years old. But like one thing the NBA, I've been saying this for a while, has lost is just some crazy motherfuckers. Like the NBA I grew up on, at any moment, something crazy could happen. And you knew it. The NFL is still always like that because the game is still physical. Like they've taken the physicality. Part of where it happened in the NBA was like a hard foul and it was melee, right? Well, the hard fouls don't exist anymore, right? A hard foul even now.
I don't know. LeBron almost went to the hospital on Wednesday night.
But to me, coaches, like in baseball, you said this before we started the podcast. Not in a million years would Dave Roberts. I mean, I don't think Gabe Kapler would be allowed to say this. Alex Cora, the Red Sox.
Aaron Boone.
They would never, ever. I mean, what he calls his guys.
Which,
savages.
by the way, if I was, I wouldn't want my manager. Like, I'm not saying it's good necessarily, but it's entertaining. It's good for the sport.
And entertain. They're in the entertainment business. Like we're in the entertainment business, right? If you do something. Whether a television show, which that's what sports are, whether you do what we do, we talk now. Like ultimately your goal is to entertain. And I do think just it's become much more generic, right? It's like I know for a fact coaches in all three major sports have to hate certain things and they just have to muzzle themselves. Yeah. We're back in the day. And listen, I'm not saying every coach, just a first year coach back in 83 had the juice to say it. But like if Brad Stevens wanted to go, yeah, I think we've been pretty gutless this year. You know, I think beside like Marcus Smart, I think Tatum's been pretty selfish. That's getting said in the 87. That's not getting said now. But that creates like, damn, you see what that gets people talking. That gets people enjoying. Lil Russa, that got more people talking, I'd say, about baseball than anything that's happened. Anything that negatively has happened in baseball this year.
They're a great example because they're a legitimately good baseball team. And
they're the best team in baseball.
Last year, I watched a lot of White Sox games. And I loved last year. It was clear to me like this team's pretty sweet.
Well, you went to the playoff game against the A's, and remember that weren't they up 2-0?
They were. Yeah, they looked good in the postseason too. But they've just got sweet players, Abreu, and some of their pitchers, and all these dudes that have like kind of have bellies and hit bombs. And you know, to me, it'd be one thing if La Russa was coaching the Angels. If he was the skipper of the Angels. The Angels stink. He's like it's the best combination of. The White Sox are a great story for baseball reasons, and now they're a story because the manager, one of the best teams in baseball, is like going to war with his own clubhouse. It's fantastic. So,
the guy, he's one of the greatest managers in the history of the sport, right?
Right.
Wouldn't he be considered that? I mean,
he's not a guy that you can just kick to the curb and promote your pitching coach.
I think where the NFL
Plus he's pretty tight with the owner, so it's.
I think the NFL has lost. Like they used to be full of just Parcells, right? And they don't have as many of those anymore. But the one thing in football that you can still become really famous on as a coach is be like this schematic genius, and we're fascinated by that. Always have. Even going back to like before we were born, you can read about some of these coaches, like Al Davis's X's and O's brain in the 70s. Like people just fascinated by outthinking people. Where in baseball, it's like, well, I know the managers ain't doing anything. Like, I don't think Gabe Kapler's getting that much credit. We're like, yeah, you don't even set the lineups or do anything. Like, I don't give him any credit. I give all the credit to the GM. Whether that's fair or not, I lean it's probably pretty fair because we all know the GMs run it. La Russa, and this is why everyone pushed back when he was hired, which I thought was kind of stupid. It's like, okay, I get he's old, but let's not act like he's the village idiot. Like, he hasn't forgotten more baseball than probably 90% of the managers right now in the game know. Right, he's an elite
I think
baseball
the question
mind.
is right there is an advantage to be gained by analytics. Is he open to using that advantage? Right, I think that's kind
Clearly
of
working whatever they're doing.
Yeah, they got
right?
great players. I don't know really what managers' moments. We'll see.
Yeah,
Like,
Phil Jackson.
To me,
Phil
what
Jackson
matters.
Players, though.
Yeah,
it's like you have great players.
Well, I don't. I've always said this: you can't find a championship team that won without great players. Like, no coach has ever won without great players. But the moments that a baseball manager gets, he gets a couple over the course of a year. Bochy, you get a couple. It would what would you do with Madison Bumgarner in the World Series? Like, how did you you'll get like Russa, this team's good enough that he's just going to get a couple of big moments. How does he handle it?
I just think it's very healthy still to this day in sports to be like, yeah, that's not going to fly here. And you just, that happens. Think about this. That happens in every one of our walk of lives, right? Whether we're for 18 years when we're a kid in our parents' roof, we're told all the time, no. When you get hired and you get a job, you're told all the time by your bosses, whether it's no, or you can't do that, or you can't stay here, or that's not good enough, or you got to do that. Human beings, everyone listening is told their wives say no. Like, we're told no, we're humbled. Yet I think sometimes, and this is where the basketball has really become, it's like, God, these guys, Kyrie can just do whatever. Like, that's not relatable. Where it's just say what you want, even if he's wrong, and I think it's stupid. I've been texting a lot of people. It's like, God, Tony, just chill out a little bit.
Yeah,
it is enjoyable.
Absolutely. That's the problem. The one area you might kind of lose the locker room is this is a ridiculous take. Like, this is the hill you're going to die on. You can't.
Well, it's like, let it go, Tony.
Again, the guy was throwing 45 miles an hour. 47 miles an hour. By the way, the guy who hit the ball, Mercedes. He's like a 27-year-old second-year player. Like, this guy, he's making $500,000. Like, he's every home run. Like, he's out here fighting for his career, right? That's the other part.
Like 40. I guess they only played 60 games, but he's like a 40 home run.
He was good last
guy.
year too, but I just mean, like, he's been basically in a bunch of minor league systems since they got him in the Rule 5 draft.
Guy, he hit some home runs I see just on highlights that feel like they're traveling farther. Like, when he's facing legit pitchers, like, he hits bombs.
Tony's not just a manager of a good team. You just made me think of this. He's also a manager of one of the most fun teams in the game, and here he is, like, anti-fun.
Didn't you know someone at the White Sox or someone that said, like, the moment they did it, people were already out? Like, people inside the building.
Somebody did tell me that internally they thought A.J. Hinch was going to be the guy, and that's who a lot of people wanted. But Phil Jackson. Jerry Reinsdorf is tight with Tony. They hired Tony.
Well, I'll never forget this.
And Jerry Reinsdorf is, like, speaking of good management, like, he's good management historically.
Maybe we've talked about this publicly. Maybe we haven't, but it's so far removed, it doesn't matter anymore. When we had the radio show, we got to go to spring training, and we used to go and get to interview, the A's and the Giants. Well, with the A's, because we had them, they would just funnel us people. With the Giants, we kind of had to hustle for them. We were outsiders. But we got to do Bochy, maybe both years, but definitely one year. And we waited. And Bochy always did a good job of placating. He was great with the media. So he always put on this face, and I think most people are like, God, he's a great guy. And he is. I know, a guy that worked for my cousin's business, was like his best friend in the minor leagues, loves him. Like, Bochy's salt of the earth. I do think Bochy is a complete old school hard ass. I don't think he's the easiest guy to deal with on a daily basis. And Tim Flannery, the legendary third base coach, is just retired. And what was the guy's name?
Roberto Kelly.
And we were going to interview Bruce Bochy. And he was in a closed-door meeting, but the door was kind of cracked open. And I remember you and I were standing there, and it was very, very tense. And like, he was kind of reading him the riot act of what was acceptable, what we were going to do, and how to do it.
In spring training, the pressure was on in spring training.
Guy, wasn't that like the third day of spring training, too?
It was pretty early,
we weren't like a month in. Roberto Kelly walked out of that room like I'm sure offensive coordinators have walked out of the room with Bill Parcells. Like, am I going to get fired this year? Like, am I going to make it?
And the answer was
he was terrible.
It was bad.
And maybe Bochy knew, but I remember being scared for Roberto Kelly. Like, God damn, I was intimidated. Like, are we sure you're ready for this guy? And he flips a switch and he was great. But it's just like hard asses consistently in life, let alone sports, win. I do think they do a better job of just shutting their mouth now. I don't think they don't think like that. Like, I don't. Kyle Shanahan just traded DeForest Buckner. Like, they will do cutthroat things. They'll just. I think Andy's a great example of this. like his actions, if you just look at his 20 years of cutting guys, trading guys, like pretty cutthroat.
Were you there?
know?
Yeah.
But he's very like, oh, big lovable, big Red. That's his nickname, Big Red.
Big Red.
Yeah, Big Red will cut your ass.
They don't
or
call
fire
you Big Red if you're just a jerk to everybody. They don't love you.
No.
Were you there the year that I hosted that Grizzlies banquet and Bochy was there? Did you attend that one?
Was Matt Cain there, that one?
Yeah, Matt Cain was there.
Yeah, I went.
Bochy was very cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's very loose, but I think he's much closer to like a Russa Parcells than anyone would ever mention him to be like.
I mean, he's an old school catcher. Remember
when it all
fight?
Remember when the Giants fell apart 3 years ago and some anonymous players came out like, yeah, we think he's kind of lost it. Like he was so angry, like his energy was negative because he couldn't. Bill Parcells, Tommy Lasorda, Tony La Russa, even Belichick. I think Belichick 7-9 was just like, oh my, like just the misery. Like old school hard asses can just be miserable fast.
You know who ain't 7-9 right now?
Who?
The Giants have the most wins in baseball right now.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
They're 28-16.
They're pretty good. They're pretty. Corey Connors is tied for first.
I know. I got him on my team, John. I've got my DraftKings team right now has Corey Connors T1, Hovland T1, Keegan T1.
You know the hard part about gambling on golf?
And I'm only in front by a point.
If you truly like, because you're going to have a bunch of good ideas, you'd have to put like $500 to execute all the ideas.
I know. That's where DraftKings is great.
Yeah, DraftKings is great that way.
A couple YouTube comments. This is from Zach. He says, Middlecoff, you used to drive me nuts when you followed the Raiders. Now this is my favorite YouTube channel. You guys are great. Back when you did Raiders postgame. Remember that?
Do you think he's speaking as a Raider fan?
I doubt it.
Yeah.
John used to do Raiders postgame. John was the Raiders postgame host.
I saw Derek Carr I don't know, it's called a retweet, but what's a story? A repost, on his Insta story. Mm-hmm. Clearly the Carrs have kind of gotten into golf. I mean Derek's probably a pretty good player, but David has the TrackMan that all the pros use, just the box TrackMan, which I think runs for, Tyler Raber told me, about 15 to 20K, just that little box that just reads the like 8 numbers. He must have been hitting fucking drives at his TrackMan house at David Carr's estate in Bakersfield, carried it, I think, like 345, and the quote was like, "Don't stop lifting weights." Like, I'd make fun of David for being kind of jacked or whatever. I don't know why he's so jacked, but I will say this. I bet David Carr can bomb some drives. I bet Derek can too.
In the heat of Bakersfield.
Because when Tyler's busted that out, I can hit the ball 300 yards. A good carry for me is like 280. You're getting 330, 320 carries. Those are bombs.
Speaking of which,
you follow Berkshire, Kyle Berkshire, the long drive
guy. Yeah.
Some of his carries that he posts on Instagram are 410. Now he swings. Bryson talks about him 24/7. Bryson loves him.
So I was watching I watched Phil some practice. Did you watch any of the practice round stuff on ESPN Plus? Wednesday or Tuesday? Phil has the TrackMan out there on the as they're playing practice holes, and these guys hit like multiple balls and and like Andy.
I think you're allowed to do anything.
Well, I was watching. You know what fascinates me is like how do all these guys play practice rounds? Because it looks like it'd be slow as hell. But I think some of them play 9 or like Rom and Finau were playing together, and they didn't. They just were standing on a tee box for like 7 minutes doing nothing but just hanging out. But Phil was playing. He was taking the TrackMan with him on the tee box. Yeah. In the practice round.
But it's like historic that they all have money games in the practice round. Well, how do you have a money game when you're hitting 7 balls?
Well, I bet there's different types of practice rounds, right? I bet this type of practice round is not the money game practice round.
In a major, yeah, it's probably like the Houston
They're just
Open.
feeling out the course, hitting multiple drives. I bet those games happen more when you're at a course you've played multiple times, maybe. So maybe it's not majors, but it's where it's every year you're back at Memorial or something.
Bay Hill, just some of these random tournaments.
Do you remember the old days when Steph would have a good game and Spieth would be a baller and like you check Under Armour stock? I'm wearing an Under Armour golf shirt that I actually got at Raiders camp one year, like the Napa outlets.
Yeah.
Remember we used to go? Is
them,
Under Armour stock? I mean, big Steph day and Spieth in the news. Is Under Armour bouncing back?
It is Lulu, Uber, Nike. I might have just taken it off my ticker.
No.
They were there was a point in time where it felt like Under Armour was really headed somewhere. And they still do. I mean, like, oh, what's your lineup? You're like, I don't know. We got The Rock, Tom Brady, Cam Newton, Mike Trout, Buster Posey, Jordan Spieth. Like, their lineup is still pretty solid. It's not like they missed on all their players. Like, they did nail when Cam Newton was in his peak. Steph was balling, Spieth was winning majors, and Tom Brady was like, he's been sweet for 20 years now. It's like, God damn, this Nike's in trouble. They can feel him. And then remember, they offered Kevin a bunch of money, and Kevin Durant was going to go there, and he turned him down last minute for Nike. That would have been, I think, a pretty pivotal. One problem for Steph is shoes. Even though I saw a guy at the gym, Steph's shoes have gotten progressively better.
They have.
They're definitely. I saw like a younger high school basketball player look like getting a lift in at my gym for Los Lomas, and his shoes, they were Under Armour, so they're definitely Steph. They look pretty good.
They do. I've talked over the years to a few, like the college basketball players, and I have not talked obviously the last year or two, but they historically have not liked their Under Armour shoes.
I think about Nike, like. If you've been doing something forever, like why do people like Titleist irons? I don't know. They've been in the game for 50 years. It's just like, they've been in the shoe game since what's his name? Prefontaine in the 70s. Yeah. Like they just know what they're doing.
Raid the Tape on YouTube. Raid the Tape, Raider fan. What's up with Julio Jones? He washed up? I actually don't think he's washed up. I just think he's super expensive. Do you think he's washed up, quote unquote, or washed?
He's definitely not washed. I think older players who's had that much, wear and tear on the tires. I think, and last year was injured. It would be a risky move. Like, is he just going to be a guy that's injured a lot now? Like he could easily just have 2 more years of where he bangs off, 15, 16 games, back-to-back years, right? But what is there a year like where a foot just shatters? And it's not because it's just wear and tear on the foot. The bones were a little thinner. Right. I'm not just a state school guy, but clearly, like, I have this theory when a guy tears an Achilles. Is Achilles a little bit like a tire? Like the more some of these guys just train and train and train, or some just, Achilles stronger than other people's Achilles?
Well, I'm sure, but I remember hearing a doctor say years ago, it's not a matter of if but when with Achilles. If you play enough pickup hoops at age 50,
yeah. So maybe you start off with just a thinner tire / Achilles, right? Because why do some guys tear their Achilles at I guess it's pretty consistent. Feels like older guys tear their Achilles in sports more than like a 21-year-old. Every once in a while it happens to a younger guy. Definitely when you have another injury and you start balancing it out, it's like when your car is out of alignment and your tires run. Navarro Bowman, remember he tore his Achilles after the major knee injury. Yeah. So it starts like balancing your training out.
Yep.
That's another theory of mine from the doctor's office here.
And remember who used to tell us that is Doug Christie used to talk about that.
The what?
Well, when you hurt one side of your body, the other side of your body becomes more susceptible.
Is Doug Christie a healthy eater, or is he just naturally incredible genetics, or is he a dirty eater, skinny still?
No, not dirty eater at all. He drinks like red wine vinegar, apple cider vinegar every day, among other things.
He's a very healthy.
Extraordinarily healthy.
Gotcha.
Extremely healthy. Yeah.
So it's not just genetics.
Well, the genetics is the height. The height's the genetics.
But I just mean he'd naturally be tall,
his waist
skinny,
size has got to be, what is he, 6'8", and he's 6'6", and his waist size has got to be a 34. I mean, it's probably bigger than that, but he's cut, slim. Yeah. The belt doesn't break 90. Start to bend forward a little bit. All right, bag alert on Friday. We'll see if I'm still in the lead at DraftKings by then. And if you're watching on the YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out the pod, tell your friends. Yeah, man, holler at us. Anything else?
That's all I got.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Later.